Hey gang, how's it going? This is Travis Overstreet. Gonna do a hair tutorial for you to kind of talk about how I built up the hair for this model. Um, we're gonna start in ZBrush and then we're gonna move into Maya. We'll go through first a little quick section on setting up the braids, and then we'll go through just kind of the just a quick overview of the process of just kind of laying out the hair and placing the hair, and how I did that. So these are a couple images that just kind of show the hair from the Marmoset render, and then I've got some examples back here that show just the isolated view, just in different angles and stuff like that. So we kind of know what we're about to try to tackle here. This is kind of based on some Viking hairstyles and stuff. And I say Viking like costumed like film and things. So the way I did this was I started in ZBrush, built out the braid using a braid brush that I purchased off the asset store at ArtStation, from Sergi Camprubi. I might be pronouncing that wrong. Sorry, Sergi. Um, Anyways, really great brush. Comes with several different types of braids. Highly encourage you to jump on there and download this. I mean, to me, that's a steal at $2. That was a no-brainer. And yeah, it's just a curved brush, loads right up, works wonderfully. So let's jump into ZBrush and take a look at that. Here we are in ZBrush. I've got my model reference all loaded in, ready to go. Then I've got the braid brush loaded in here, and you can see up here at the top a bunch of different types of braids you can play with and try. I'm just using the braid one. I'm going to come in here, and all we're going to do is just kind of draw out the braid, similar to the way you would do any kind of curved brush. I'm going to test real quick and see if I've got the size I want. I might go a little bit smaller than that. Okay, so I'm just going to draw this out, and I'm going to give myself I want to first draw a shorter braid than I think, because sometimes you'll get stuff that goes back here and you'll have to pull it out and stuff. And speaking of that, before I start pulling this out and moving it around, I want to adjust the stroke curve, and I want to set it to lock start. That way this stays where I put it, and I can just pull on this guy and position this braid where I want it. All right. And if I want, I can extend it a little bit, make it a little longer, give myself a little more room so I can toy with that. Okay, I'll make sure that's feeling right. Okay, cool. And if you want, you can also do some cool things where you like adjust the size of the braid, and that's just up here under the stroke, under curve modifiers, and it's already set to size. But we can do some things like undulate the size of the braid. See if we can go more extreme than that. Let's go. Yep. So you can do cool things like that. I mean, whether you want to or not. I mean, definitely for me, for what I'm working on right now, I don't need that. And you just simply go in there and make those adjustments, and then click back on that curve. See your marker turns blue. You can click back on that curve, and it just auto updates. Okay, so really that's all we need to do in ZBrush. We're just going to do this one braid right now. I'm not going to go through the whole set of braids. It's the same process for each braid. But yeah, really simple. Just kind of laying that out, and then just click off the model on somewhere else to get rid of that curve. And then I'm going to invert the mask, and let's go and group, not group visible, goodness. Let's see, group mask, where'd that go? Group mask. And I've got these on my own kind of shortcut panel. If you want to find where that's at, it's actually under polygroups, down here under group mask. Okay, this is just my own personal tool set. Which actually I could make that available. Might put that on the video as well, or attach this to the files. Anyways, cool. So once that is in its own polygroup, I'm just gonna click that, subtool split, split hidden. So now I've got that separated, and I'm gonna export it. And it's key to make sure that it's one polygroup. just because it's a curve brush with a start, middle, and end, and it will by default create 3 poly groups, right? That start, middle, and end. If you export it with those 3 poly groups, you're going to have 3 separate meshes in Maya, which isn't the end of the world. You just have to merge them or either come back to ZBrush and do it again. But just a good thing to know before you do it. One thing I might do before we pull this in is I'm going to grab my snake hook brush and just pull this down a little bit. There we go. Just to make that insertion point a little bit more believable. I mean, we'll come in and add cards on top of it and stuff, but just to save us some time and effort. Okay, so now I'm going to export this. Okay, so here we are in Maya. We are going to bring that braid in, get it UV'd and set up so that we can put some cards, we can assign it to some hair cards, get that placed. So let's import it. All right. And then from there, first thing we want to do is reduce this poly count. It's a little much. So I'm going to use the mesh reduce tool. Where did it go? There it is. And I'm going to click option box. And then you can set the percentage of reduction you want here. Honestly, this thing does a really good job. So I kind of go a little aggressive with it. Just set mine at 85%. Apply. Let it do its thing. And Shibuya. Looks really nice. I mean, pretty nice. Good job. All right, cool. So the next thing we need to do is get the UVs on this guy. And to make that a little easier to work with, I'm going to edit, mesh, and extract so I can separate out all 3 of these braids so I can work on them one at a time. So I'm going to Alt-H. Oh, make sure I bring my lights in too because I've got my lighting set up. All right. There we go. Got all my lights. All right, there we go. That's better. That's better. That's better. Okay, so first things first, let's delete these end caps. We don't need those. We're making some cards, so those won't be important. And let's delete the end cap over here. We'll come back in and at the end with these braids, I ended up adding just like a little frayed, just adding in hand placed cards at the end. So not too worried about how it ends. It's gonna be covered up with like a tie. And we'll have like frayed stuff coming out at the end of that. All right, so now that we have that, let's get some UVs going. I'm gonna go to UV editor, create planar. All right, and then once I have that, I'm gonna go to face, select all my faces, and I'm gonna modify and unitize. So what that's gonna do is it's gonna make every single face, it's gonna cut the edges of every single face and it's gonna lay it out square. All right, and so what that's going to allow me to do is that now I can highlight all of the edges. And let me go back here real quick because I don't want all the edges because I want to, what we're going to do is we're going to sew all these different squares together so they're nice and even and straight. We can put them into a card, but I don't want to sew the edges of this guy and this guy over here. So I can kind of basically create 2 separate strips so that I have like 2 layers of hair cards, like one front, one back. All right, so now I'm going to go back to my UV editor. With those edges, I'm going to go to cut, sew, and move and sew. All right. So there we go. Straighten this guy out. Turn on the checkerboard pattern. Let me shrink these first so we can actually see the checkerboard. And I'll lay this out over the letters. I want to make sure these are going the right direction. So, okay, so that's V. As long as we're in the same direction, that's all I really care about right now. Okay. Looks like they are. Okay, cool. And then let's also, I'm going to do this off screen. Let me kind of show you what I'm doing here. Shrink this down a little bit, just so we can get a bit of both in the window here. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to adjust the scale on this guy so we get some relatively square checkerboard patterns. And I'm not super worried when I have areas of stretching when it comes to hair. It's pretty forgiving with those hair cards, especially when it's straight hair or maybe even like straight to wavy hair. Just because like the strands just typically follow that path. And we're gonna smooth this. So let's actually go ahead and do that and see what it looks like. So when you smooth it, it's even more forgiving, right? A little smooth preview when you press 3, even more forgiving. So all right, so now that we got that, we turn off my checkerboard pattern. Okay, I want to display my other braids. Let me grab these guys. The reason I want to do that is so, let me make sure my UV editor is open. I'm going to move it over here to the side just so I can see my cuts and stuff. And I'm going to turn on transparent. And then basically I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cut a line anywhere that it goes behind where it is kind of invisible, because we want to create these sections of hair, and that's where we're gonna. So this will be a card. This will be a card. It'll have a start here and an end over here, and then I'm just gonna make sure I'm in my UV editor and hit Shift X, and that will cut that. Let me just open up. It's hard to do this on this one screen. Let's do it here. Panels, panel, UV editor. There we go. Just so we can have that open and know what's going on. All right, and then I'm just going to turn off X-ray, turn on X-ray as needed to find the seam that I need. I grab this seam. I'm just going to go down through here and go ahead and grab all these seams and then cut them at one time. I'm going to grab that. There we go. Okay. So I can cut right here. Okay, and then I can cut. Let's do it right there. Gotcha. Here, and again, this bottom area doesn't bother me too much. We're gonna have some some like ties and cover ups and stuff on that. All right, so Shift X. All right, got that where we want it. So the next thing we need to do, come in here and lay these guys out. Just to make this easier on myself, for now, I'm gonna grab all of these, either one, just all of them in the one side. Put my anchor point at the top left, and then hold V to constrict it. Lay them on top of each other, because what we're gonna do now, we're gonna come through here and grab each section, try to line them up so they fill the same space. All right, I'm just using holding D and V, and that gives me that. Holding D allows me to move my anchor point. Holding V constricts it to vertices. and then just constricting the anchor point to the top left vertex. And then I'm holding V, and that makes it click to vertices. So I'm just gonna keep moving on down the line with that process. Hold D and V, put it at the top center, hold V, put it in place, R, and then scale it down. Keep moving down as I go. A little tedious, but it's kind of what hair is, at least so far. Kind of excited that sounds like Epic bought shaving a haircut, and also donating a lot to Blender Foundry, or to Blender Foundation. Maybe because of the Eevee renderer, I don't know. Hoping that means they're doing maybe some stuff with like in-game spline hair. We don't have to worry about all this card nonsense anymore. I have to imagine that's coming up real soon. All right. I'm not worried about that bottom being super precise. It's kind of okay if they, because for the most part the starts and ends are pretty hidden. If it clips off a little bit of the hair or goes over a little bit, it's just going to give it a little more randomness, which is totally fine. Not worried about it. Okay, so now I got that. Let's go ahead and apply that to my existing hair shader that I have set up here. And if you want to know about that hair shader and like that whole process, grab Adam's tutorial. That'll give you all the information you need on setting that stuff up. So I'm going to lay this out over my hair base strands that I did, which are over here on the left. So I'm just going to line those up. And let's let's see, make sure we'll check the direction here in just a second. Get them laid out first. Okay, so let's check. Looks like the directions are correct. Okay. Okay. And then I'm going to come in here and let's turn off. Where's the shading at? Okay. Well, I want to turn off that blue shading. I can't remember. That's what did it. Yeah, I should have done it, but I guess I have to have one of these active. Seems odd. Yeah, I don't like that at all. Okay, well, then maybe turn that off. There we go. That's better. All right, cool. So basically I'm coming through here and grabbing these edges where it looks like it's fading off a little too early, and then just pulling them and adjusting them on my texture sheet, my UVs, so that I get a little more coverage. All right, and let's see. Let's grab, in order to push that in closer, let's grab the one above it. Do this. Closer. I'm not so worried. That's one of the ones that's facing to the back, right? Well, it's just going to get covered up by the the following passes and whatnot. This just needs to be a base. And another thing I'm noticing that I want to do is I want to grab, let me go ahead and smooth this out too. All right, cool. So we got a little bit of gaps and stuff here on the edge, which is fine. We have a little bit of that. That's totally cool. But what I want to do, just to eliminate some of that stuff, I'm going to come in here and grab that. I'm going to press B to get my soft select going. Just pull that down a little bit. Actually, you know what? Instead of that, let's grab my UVs. Let's grab the center here. Let's just grab the center few. All right, with B selected, I'm going to scale these in. Start pulling in. Make that a little tighter. There we go. Get rid of some of those gaps. Some nice hair strands going on there. Yeah, all right. It's looking good. All right, so I'm going to pause and I'm going to do these other 2 braids the same exact way. And I'll be right back with the results and we'll chat about that. Okay, so now we're back. We've got our braids all UV'd. We've got our base hair on. Right here we've got a bit of a problem. And we're just going to fix that by selecting our braids, going to vertices, selecting a nice chunk of them, using soft select, make sure world orientation selected for your select tool, for your move tool, and there we go. Okay, cool. So that's our braids all set up and laid out, and you can see our UVs there. Right. Okay. So that's basically how I laid out the braids. Just did that and repeated it for each set of braids, and then basically came in on top of it, and I'll show you this next process just a second. All right, so when I say just a second, let's do it now. All right, let me hide these guys, and we'll kind of walk through the layout, and then we will talk about how I did what I did. All right, so like I said before, these are all of the braids. And as you see, these braids have a bunch of different pieces compared to the braids we had just set up, because we have a bunch of different layers. So basically, this all consists of a few different layers of cards, right? So we have our base layer of cards, which is using the this first hair strand. So basically, these first few, well, this hair strand are both kind of base layer hair strands. These next two are breakups. This third one's pretty much a breakup as well. And there's a flyaway layer here and a roots layer here. So the way I went about this was basically hand placed, place the braids with ZBrush, and then from here, actually I think I hand placed these guys. These 2 braids were ZBrush braids, and then hand placed the other cards, right? So just created strips, laid them out, just hand placed them. Takes a little bit of time, but it ends up working out in the end. And you want to keep them. I like keeping them smooth because in the end we just subdivide them, reduce them. And that, again, that's from the Adam Scott hair tutorial, which again, really, really good tutorial. Can't recommend it enough. Anyways, so I laid out this first base layer, and then after I had this base layer, I selected the base layer and the head, right? And then Control D to duplicate, Control G to group them together, go up to Mesh and Combine. Oh, actually missed a step. So before we do that, let's grab the hair. We're going to combine that. Then we're going to press 1 to get back to our normal view, unsmooth, and then we're going to smooth them. 2 divisions should do it. Okay. And then we're going to combine that with the head. Mesh, combine. All right, so they're all one piece. Then I hid the hair in the head. Okay, so now I have this one piece here. And from there, it's just a matter of turning on or setting it as a live object and then grabbing, let me go ahead and get out of that UV view, and then grabbing our toolbox, our modeling toolkit. Then we're just going to use quad draw, and then coming in and adding in different layers of breakup and whatnot. So, starting here, and I would use basically the same formula, like the amount of spans going, kind of like horizontally or like with it or with the flow of the hair, I didn't really care. But in the middle, I just had like one subdivision or one edge loop just to get a little bit of dimension. All right. Just place this guy. And I'm going to overlap here and there. Because again, this is going to be a breakup layer. We want to break up the overall silhouette, give a little bit of dimension to it. All right, so it's kind of coming through here. And because of the way the quad draw likes to autocomplete and interact and stuff, typically I would do one pass of like braids going this way, and then I'd separate. I would go ahead and hide that that polygon or whatever that mesh, and then I would come in and do like the other side of the braid breakups, and then same thing up here in the hair as well. So technically it's one pass, but it's done in a couple of different sections, just because of technical limitations or just the tool. Okay, so we're just coming around here. Oop. One, two, there we go. Got it. Get it. And I'm not worried too much about the angle and stuff like that. I'm going to modify that here in just a second. It's good enough for that. Let's do this top area here. All right. Like I said, just trying to overlap here and there, getting away from the silhouette of what's actually under there. So I would go through and basically lay out that same kind of mesh kind of setup. I would go through and draw for all of these different areas, right? And so for some of the big ones, it's going to be more broad breakup. And really just kind of playing against the existing flow. Because that base layer, and again, this is in the Scut tutorial, that base layer is really just kind of set up the flow. So that's really where like a lot of the hard work is. This gets to be, the breakup layers become a little more artistic. You can really kind of play with the flow of the hair and kind of play against the existing flow that's there, and just add a little bit of variety and whatnot. Okay, so a little bit more broad. So after I had that, turn off my live object, use my vertex tool, make sure this is set to smooth. Actually, sorry, before I do any of this, let's go ahead and apply, let's go ahead and UV these guys and get them onto some hair cards. So similar to the way we did the braid, we're just gonna create planar, modify, unitize, grab these edges, cut and sew, move and sew. All right. Let's get them all pointed in the same direction. All right, let's check our direction, see. Let's get this down a bit so we can actually see that. Oh, here, let me open this in another panel. There we go. Much better. Okay. I'm just looking to see if these have basically I want the letters to be upside down. Good, good, good. Upside down in relation to the flow here, because the base of the hair needs to be right up here at the top. And good, we got lucky on that one. Okay, great. All right, so the next thing we do, same way we did the braids. Get them all the same relative size. Turn off that grid. Where'd my... There it is. Losing mine. Alright, something weird's going on. I'm going to restart my... I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. And just a quick note that I just learned that I should have known already. I'll share it with you just in case you guys don't know as well. So I lost my grid there and was kind of confused. And that's because there's a little button right here. Turns on and off your UV grid, which, goodness, I should have known that. All right, so I'm going to apply my material, or my hair material, to these strips. Turn on my texture layer here so I can actually see and place these guys. All right, and these guys, let's do a couple different ones. Let's do just so we can have some examples. Put this guy, actually, put this guy on this next breakup layer. This first hair breakup. I'm just gonna line that up. This next one we'll place over here. And this one we'll place over here. And this last one we'll place right here. Okay, great. So after we have the textures laid out, I'm just going to show you how I sculpt after that, and then that's why I applied it to a couple different breakup layers. Ideally, you would do them all on one one breakup layer at a time with one different set of strands for each. So with this one, I just applied a bunch of different ones on there just to show you the different layer, different strand types I had. So I'm going to use vertices. I'm just going to start pushing and pulling. Make sure it's on component mode. And what I'm really doing here is, number one, adding variety to the shape, starting to add a little more dimensionality to the hair. And with the way the hair cards are set up, you can do some really cool stuff as far as, you know, pushing vertices closer together and pulling them further apart in other areas. It gives you some nice tight areas for the hair and some looser, kind of freer areas to the hair, which is a nice variety. Um, it's it's really makes the hair feel a little more natural. If you want, you know, tighter braids or tighter hair and more kempt hair, then you probably want to do less of, you know, kind of these really far pullaways and kind of keep it pretty close together. Um, but for my character, it was more of, you know, a Viking character. I'm sure she's been fighting and running around and less concerned with how her hair looks, and the braids are more for utility than looks. Okay, and then play around with my roots here. Just start to layer those up. I mean, we'll have a layer of roots that will help that out, but it's nice to in each layer for these roots just kind of like, you know, build them up so you have some depth to it, and then that last layer of roots will be there um, just to kind of add a kind of little polish layer there to show a little finer connections. Okay, so right here, let me turn my transparency on. Right here, I've got it's thinning out a little sooner than I want, and with this layer here being my second breakup layer, um, a lot of this is tucking in. It's not meant to be like flying off or anything like that. So what I can do is come into my UVs. Let's see, is that, yeah, okay, just making sure I had the right set here. I can pull down my UVs and condense my texture to get more of this chunkier area into the end. And because it's being tucked in there, I don't have to worry about it cutting off up here at the top. And that's really more for like this layer and then this base layer. Um, that becomes less possible as you get into these areas where you need to see the ends kind of fraying and flying away. All right, back to my vertices. Here's another layer. This would be, this hair texture would have been like a separate breakup layer, right? Like I said, for purposes of the demo, I just wanted to show you a few different versions. So this layer would be more about actually starting to have a little bit of loose hair here and there, not being quite as tight, giving a little bit of depth via the transparency, right? It's really cool what you can do with the shape of these strips, because you can really push and pull things. And because of the way the UVs are laid out, you get these really nice kind of rolling, organic, curvy shapes that have a lot of variety in the um, density of the hairs almost. Um, and so you can, I mean, you can be pretty liberal with how you treat these cards. The textures are pretty forgiving, and because of the amount of layers that you end up adding in, um, totally a little stretching here and there isn't really that noticeable. You can really be free with it and have a lot of fun. That is one thing that I really like about this process. Um, is it feels very artistic. Um, it kind of takes kind of the technicality of the hair and kind of frees you up a bit, which is always nice. All right, let's get this. All right, so this is another hair card section. I think this one's going to be even looser. So I think the way I set that up is that, you know, each hair card's going to have like looser strands there. And again, right, this would be each of these strands would have been like their own paths. It would have had multiple cards with the same section of that texture on them. This will have like looser hair, getting closer to flyaway territory almost, but not quite. And the more you build up these layers that have a lot of that transparency in them, the more shadow you have kind of dancing around within the hair, adding to the complexity of the shading of the hair, which is good. Okay. Pull this guy out. Just checking to see if I've got like interpenetration and stuff. It looks like I might have some down there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I'm starting to get some kind of free strands here and there, which is good. All right, and then last, let's grab this big one. Play with that. And because of that base layer, so the base layer in your hair is kind of to establish the silhouette and the flow of the hair. So with these following breakup layers and flyaways and things, you're basically kind of like riffing on that flow and that shape. You're just taking it and modifying what you established already. So what's really fun is that with these following breakup layers, you can really kind of play around and like I said, it's almost it's like riffing, right? So you're taking this like, oh, so I know this curve here kind of goes like this, and then wraps around like that. Well, with this next breakup layer, I'm going to take that and I'm going to follow it a little bit, but then I'm going to deviate from it right here and see how that goes. And as long as it feels like it kind of hits and flows in the right places and complements the existing flow, awesome. I mean, hair has this kind of play to it that I think is really interesting. These rhythmic curves, I think are really fun. And it reminds me a lot of figure drawing in a way, which I love figure drawings. That I don't know. I keep making these comparisons, and I feel like they help me. I feel like they might be a bit of a stretch, but for me they help. So maybe they'll help you. All right, so that's another little breakup layer, a little looser strand. You can kind of see what's starting to happen there. I've got a little bit of penetration there that I want to fix real quick. Those are some things that we don't want to leave. All right. So that's my process for building up the hair. Let's hide this and go back to our layers. I went through and did that for each of these layers, right? So once the base was done, merge all that together, put it as a live object, quad drew, UVs, stuff like that. So it takes a second. It can be tedious at times, but it pays off in the end, I think. So this is first breakup layer, second breakup layer, third breakup layer, right? Fourth breakup layer. And this gets into almost flyaway territory, but they're kind of in between, just really starting to break up some silhouette here and there. And then some true flyaways. And last but not least, some roots, right? Just to give a little bit better connection between the scalp and the hair. Okay, so that is my hair process. I hope it helped. Thanks for tuning in. Talk to you guys later.